Welcome new and old friends. My name is 242, and today 2 got us 6 creepy Reddit stories. And she even got As the Raven Dreams to join us this evening. And remember, if you enjoy these stories, like, subscribe, share, and comment. But you can always wait till the end for that Sunday word. Now, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I like to split open my tea bags to make my brews so I can read the leaves after. I know, it's weird. You wouldn't believe the amount of bits of insects that are in there. Was being tailed by someone. By I Hate Love 776. So I work the swing shift at a mill, 5 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. And it's a 30-minute drive home, so I get home fairly late. As I'm driving home, I decide I'm going to call my cousin just to wake him up. We do this to each other. He's on rotary shift, so he will call me at all hours, and for the record, he started it. So I pulled into the parking ride kind of thing at the country line and reached into my back seat to grab my cell phone. I keep it in a bag sometimes. As I get situated and ready to call him, I notice the sedan with its brights on pull in and proceed to park right behind me. This was an empty lot at this time of night, and there was no reason they needed to be right behind me. I'm not one who gets easily rattled, but I had a really bad gut feeling. So I put my pickup in drive over to the parking curb, and head towards home. About 20 seconds after I turn onto the highway, I see the same car following me. At this point, I wasn't sure if they were following me or not, but I did not want to lead them where my house is. So I took a side road. I'm looking at the rear view. Sure enough, they make the same turn. Whatever, I think. Must be a coincidence. I take a right onto the dirt road and then turned around. As I turn around, I see the sedan at the start of the dirt road, sitting there. I thought, this is where I die. I do carry a firearm, but I never ever want to have to use it. It's obviously strictly for protecting myself and my loved ones, and I obviously want to avoid any situation I'd ever have to use it. It was there if I needed it. I decide I'm going to go 4-wheel drive towards the car, and then dip into the ditch and back onto the main road behind him. So I did that, and decided to go back to where this all started, the park and ride. The reason why is because I didn't want to lead them home, so I drove back really fast, making sure the driver didn't see the turns I made beyond any of that. I parked off to the side of the road across from that lot. I waited a few minutes. There's a sharp corner past the lot that I drive every day to go home, so I was hoping if they were following me, they'd be driving fast to try to catch me. Sure enough, I see the little sedan driving very, very fast around the corner and onto the straight stretch. All my lights were off and my truck is dark gray, so I wasn't spotted. I wait until he gets further down the road and I turn my lights on and turn back to head home. In my rear view, way down the straight stretch, I see brake lights, and him turning the car around. I decide to start driving slowly after I see where I turn to get to the dirt road. I turned off my lights again and see the headlights and then realize, yep, little sedan. And they turn back onto the road that leads to the dirt road. I don't know what it was or why I'm still frightened. I guess they may have been trying to reach me about my truck's extended warranty, but I highly doubt it. After the locals' repeated complaints of flooding and water poisoning, the lake was finally drained. What surprised them the most was not the lake's depth, radioactivity, or its concealment of an underwater cave, but the sheer amount of human corpses that it left behind. Creeper in the Pool by Amanda, narrated by As the Raven Dreams.
Back when I was 14, my family and I went on a summer vacation down south. My aunt lived that way and we hadn't seen her for a few years, so my mom decided that we would all drive that way and stay with her. Of course, this was a long drive, and it was them plus the 3 of us kids. So, they decided to split the drive up into 2 or 3 days, instead of just going straight the whole way. I was pretty excited because this meant that we would be staying in a hotel. Staying in a hotel meant that I would get to go swimming in a swimming pool. This may not sound like anything exciting to other people, but where I live there were no public pools. And I got to go swimming maybe once or twice a year, and I honestly loved swimming. We get out on the road for what feels like forever, not stopping because my dad was a stickler for making the most out of the time on the road. And when we get to the hotel that we were staying at, I was obviously psyched. It was way nicer than I expected it to be, and on the way to the elevator, I saw the pool. It was decent sized, and it had what looked like a small hot tub off to the side. I was just super excited to get out of the room and get into the pool, and we hadn't even gotten to our floor yet. As soon as we got to our room, which were adjoining rooms with the in-between doors, I threw my bag on the floor and immediately grabbed my bathing suit, and then went over and asked my mom and dad if I could head down to the pool. At first, my dad told me that I needed to wait for him to go down there with me, but my mom basically told my dad to just let me go and enjoy it, and then they could head down a few minutes after. My dad seemed like he really didn't want that, but my mom could tell that I really wanted to go. She said that I could go, so long as I took my 2 siblings with me and didn't do anything too crazy until they got down there. I agreed, and I said that I would be as careful as I could until they got down. I ran down the stairs and made my way to the pool as quickly as I could, with my 2 brothers lagging behind me. They hadn't even changed yet, so when we got down to the pool, they had to run into the restrooms to get changed, and I immediately jumped into the pool. After I jumped in, I noticed that I wasn't alone in the room, and there was an employee that was cleaning up the area. As soon as I had jumped in, he turned around to look at me and he said, "Hey, no jumping in the pool." And I apologized. As soon as he heard me, and then saw me, he walked over to the pool and asked where my parents were. I told them that they were on their way down and that I had just beat them here, thinking that he was going to tell me that I couldn't be in the pool without an adult. As soon as I said this, he squatted down by the edge of the pool and was just sitting there staring at me. I had no idea what was going on, but I figured that he may have caught on that my statement was a lie. He repeated what I said to me, but it was like in a tone that was really creepy. Like, "Huh, your parents are on their way down, huh? You sure about that, cutie?" I just kind of stood there and said, "Yeah, they're on their way." He then smirked and asked me how old I was. I responded with 14, which was true. And he just kind of laughed and stood back up. And then he made a comment that was truly freaky. He just shook his head and said, "I bet I could get you out of that pool and into my car before anyone even noticed what had happened to you." I just sat there and stared at him as he turned to walk away and went back to cleaning the window, as if he hadn't literally just told me that he could kidnap me without issue. After a few moments of just sitting there, my two brothers ran into the room and jumped in beside me. And once again, the man turned to say, "Hey, no jumping in the pool." They both apologized to him and then went on with swimming. I wasn't really feeling much like swimming at that point. So I just sat in the water watching the man as he finished cleaning the glass. As he turned to leave, he made sure to make eye contact with me and then winked, saying, "I'll see you later." I just remember his tone and the way he smirked at me. It was legitimately creepy. Thankfully, I didn't see this guy the rest of the time that we were there, since we were only there for the night, and we left pretty early in the morning. I never mentioned it to my parents or told anyone about this because I seriously didn't think anyone would do anything. Now I know that I should have reported it to them or to someone that worked there, but at the time I just didn't know what to say about it. To be completely honest, this whole situation was enough to make me never want to go swimming at a hotel ever again.
Do you have any last words before I kill you?
Snarled the demon. That was 33 years ago, and I have not said a word since, yet it still shadows me, waiting. Girl in the Bar by General. I had a long day at work Friday, so I needed to relax, so I went to my favorite bar. I was chilling and drinking a beer when I saw her and her girlfriend come in. I noticed her looking at me and I thought, great, here it goes. I moved seats to talk to my buddies when one got up to play pool, and then bam, she sat down right next to me and we started talking. I tried to tell her I don't want company when she puts her hand on my leg. Look, I just came here to relax, so if I get you a drink, will you go away? Is what I said to her. And then all at once, her girlfriend busts between us and starts informing me that that's my girl. She said, ugh. Drama, I didn't need it, so I just excused myself and left. So the girl and her girlfriend, let's not meet again. Cheating is unforgivable. I sobbed, pressing the knife deep into my boyfriend's throat. That's why my husband must never know. Why Are You Mad I'm Not Drinking? By Serenity Angel 1990. Okay, so I'm not conventionally pretty nor classically pretty. I'm the Duffy in any friend group I'm in. I never worried about being hit on, disrespected, or kidnapped. I never had to worry about my own safety when going out, as I was never the one anyone wanted to get to know or be around, because I'm so plain, and it's always me that has to be on the lookout for my friends, male or female alike. Now, I like to go to a local bar almost daily. I don't drink alcohol there, I just get a normal Coke and wait for my ride home. It's my usual hangout spot after work, so I just sit and chill and mind my own business. Well, a few weeks ago, I had just gotten off work and was chilling at my usual spot, sipping on my drink while working on a new pendant I was making. I started wire wrapping crystals into jewelry. I didn't think anyone would try to talk to me since I basically blend into the walls, even though the staff know me and pay me slight attention and are nice to me. But this weird guy I'd never seen before came over and sat at my table across from me. I was surprised and looked up at him and struck up a small conversation that I can't even remember how I started. But he started to ask me a few questions about myself that I thought were normal and all flowed together, so I didn't think much of it. Again, I'm plain and didn't think anyone would want to do anything to me. I had drank 3 glasses of soda by then and had to use the restroom, so I grabbed my phone and purse and went into the bathroom. I may not have been worried about being abducted, but I did worry about my identity, cash, and contacts. I went back a few minutes later and went back to working since none of my stuff had been touched. I called the waitress over and asked her for a new drink, and she nodded as it had always been ingrained in me that you never leave your drink unattended. And if you do, have it remade or leave it to the bartender. As she was going to grab my old drink, which only had a few sips taken out of it, the guy got a bit huffy at me, saying I was being wasteful for just ordering a new drink. I looked at him with a raised eyebrow in confusion. I asked him why was it his business if I did. It was my money, after all, and the refills were free. He then said I was making more work for the waitress for no reason. This annoyed me, and I told him again that it was my business and that if he didn't like it, he could always leave. He then tried to wave the waitress off without letting her change my drink, but I'd had enough of his nonsense and told him flat out, "Then you drink it if you think it's such a waste." It seemed to have caught him off guard, and he looked at me shocked, then a bit angry before leaving. I then looked at the drink and handed it to the waitress and told her that something didn't feel right about the guy that I was talking to, and if she could tell the bartender to keep an eye on him and dump out my drink and just bring me a water from then on. I left for home after being picked up shortly after and found out the next day after work that he had been arrested for assault. I didn't find out till today what exactly happened. Apparently, he had gotten into a fight with a bartender working that night. The bartender had caught him putting something into a girl's drink when she wasn't looking, and he stopped her from drinking it. The guy got mad and it started a whole fight. The cops were called, and now he's awaiting trial. Apparently, he was trying to see if he can get someone like me who always has her guard down for herself because my confidence was low. He thought I'd be an easy mark with just a little attention. But when I didn't just drink my drink when I came back, he had to try on another girl. If he really was targeting me, I have to question his sanity and sobriety. Thank goodness for those old lessons about safety growing up. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And to the guy at the bar, let's not meet again. I grabbed the biggest knife I could, ready to put an end to Dad's constant abuse of me and Mom. As I turned around, I saw him push Mom, and I collapsed under her weight, her blood cold as it ran down my fingers. Robbery by C.L. Narrated by As the Raven Dreams.
I have a story that was seriously the most terrifying thing to ever happen to me. I used to work the closing shift of a pizza place. I was a delivery driver, and they closed at midnight. The drivers were expected to help clean up the restaurant at close, so I would usually get out around 1 or so. After work, I would always go to this little gas station / convenience store that was open 24 hours, and most of the times that I went, the front counter was being worked by a guy named Dan. Dan was a 50-something-year-old man that really didn't seem to have much going for him. But he was friendly enough, and I was able to have a decent conversation with him each time that I would visit. The thing about this convenience store, they only had one person working each overnight shift from the hours of midnight to around 5 in the morning. Obviously, this wasn't ideal, and was a huge security risk for the store, and that person in general. Because of this, and because they expected to get a bit more foot traffic this summer, they had installed what was basically a buzzer system. After 10 p.m., the cashier had to hit the button to unlock the front door for the person that was outside, and this seemed like it was safe enough. Basically, Dan could decide if he wanted to let someone in the store or not, though he was told to let everyone in that wasn't wearing your stereotypical robber attire. On the night that this event happened, I worked a bit later than normal because we were really busy at the store. So we had a lot of dishes that we needed to do. Because it was almost 2 in the morning, I decided that I would go get some caffeine and then head home to play a game for a few hours. My sleep schedule was already screwed up, so I figured why not just pull an all-nighter. I pulled up to the store. Dan saw me and waved me in before hitting the buzzer. I walked in and asked him how he was doing, just making small talk and asking about the night. He told me that I was late, and I told him how busy the restaurant was. Basically, we just made some really banter-filled small talk about nothing in particular. After a few minutes, I saw a man walk toward the counter from around where the drink freezer was, and I told Dan that I would let him get back to work while I went to get my monster. The man that approached the counter, he looked a bit raggedy. I'm not trying to be insulting. He just kind of looked like he may have been homeless. He was wearing a large jacket in the middle of July, and was also wearing a ski cap on top of his head. Being the summer, I could only imagine that he was incredibly uncomfortable in the heat. I turned to walk away from the counter to get my drink, when I heard Dan say, "Oh, just the water this evening?" And then the man started screaming something at him. I turned around to see what the hell was going on, and I realized what he was yelling. The homeless-looking guy was yelling, "Give me the money," and pointing a gun straight at Dan's head. As soon as he realized that I was looking at him, he pointed the gun at me and told me to get behind the counter. I put my hands up and complied, walking back behind the counter and standing with my back to the wall. He keeps yelling at Dan to give him the money, or else he would just kill us both. Dan was scrambling and struggling to open the register. I think the nerves were beating the crap out of him, and for some reason he couldn't think about what buttons to press to get it open. The whole time he's scrambling to press the buttons, this guy is pushing the gun into his forehead and screaming that he had 5 seconds before he pulled the trigger. Dan pushed the button and put his hands up, and then the register shot open. The man grabbed all the cash from the drawer and immediately took off towards the front door. He went to push it open, but of course it wouldn't open because it had to be buzzed. After a couple of seconds of him trying to get it open, he stepped back and shot the door several times, causing the glass to shatter, and then he booked it. Thankfully, while fumbling over the register, Dan had pressed the button on the register to set off the silent alarm. A few minutes after the man had taken off, the police pulled up with their guns drawn, and they ran into the store. We told the officers about the man, and told them which way he had went. One of the officers got back in the car and started driving around the block to find the guy. The officers took statements from both of us, and asked to watch the camera footage so they could get a visual of the perp. They did the whole thing they normally did, dusted for prints, got the footage, and then took our information so that they could call us if necessary. Obviously, I was panicking inside, and Dan was freaking out. He called the owner and told him that he needed to come out and figure out what to do about the door, and then when he got off the phone with him, he told me to go get my drink and get the hell out of there. I went and got my energy drink, though I'm pretty sure I could have just stayed awake on pure adrenaline, and when I went to pay for it, he told me that it was on him that night. I just kind of nodded and left. After all this was said and done, I actually found out that this wasn't the guy's first robbery. It wasn't even his first robbery that night. Apparently, the little convenience store was actually the third spot that he had hit that evening. The first store he robbed was a grocery store on the other side of the state line, and the second was another gas station that was about 20 minutes north of us. The thing is, at the other gas station, he had actually shot the clerk because he wouldn't cooperate. The guy wasn't killed because he shot him in the shoulder, but he was obviously injured pretty badly. And he wasn't actually homeless. He was only using that as a disguise to make himself look larger than he was, and harder to identify. Since he had hit 2 other places that night, the police were actually pretty heavy out on the streets, which is why they were quick to get there. And they actually caught the guy a few blocks up the road where he was getting into his getaway car. It was seriously terrifying to be a bystander in this robbery, and considering he had shot the other clerk, I can imagine that if Dan had any more trouble with the register, he likely would have shot him too. It scares the hell out of me to consider how close our lives came to their end, but I am thankful that it ended without casualties. After this happened, the store decided that they would just close for the overnight shift for a while, and I decided that after work, I would just go straight home. It could have been much, much worse for sure, but it was still the scariest thing that has ever happened to me.
I could only watch from my hiding spot in horror as the hideous beast beat, tortured, and mutilated my friends with what I could only assume was delight. If I had taken the ancient tales about the human's bloodlust and viciousness more seriously, I never would have suggested hunting in the suburbs beyond the safety of the woods. The Regular by Raine. Back when I worked at a local pizza place that had a really busy dining room, I would get some real characters coming in to get food. For the most part, the characters were just pervy old guys that would make compliments about my body, and I would make a point to tell them that that behavior was not appreciated. And for the most part, they would be quiet, but sometimes you would get the old guy that would make compliments about learning to take a compliment, or whatever BS like that. Fun fact with those situations, ask them if they would say what they said to you to their own mother, or if they'd be okay if some random guy said it to their daughter. It sometimes works against them, and they kinda get the hint. That's not relevant to my story, but it's still good information to have out there. The story I wanted to mention was about a customer that used to come in frequently named Tommy. Tommy was in his late 40s, overweight, balding, and could use a shower. But honestly, he was a pretty nice guy, so I never had much of an issue serving him. He was surprisingly a good conversationalist, and he and I would talk about a lot of things that most people wouldn't bring up with their waitress. Nothing weird or creepy, just some neat conspiracy things and some technology talk. The other thing I liked about Tommy was that he made it a point to never flirt with me or even say anything considered inappropriate to or about me. He was very respectful of me as a person, and I would say that I considered him a friend. That all kind of fell apart when the conversation happened that I would personally consider creepy. Some people may hear this and think it's not creepy, but to me, coming from him, it was actually pretty messed up. He came in one day and everything seemed to be going as normal. We were slower than normally would have been, so I had a few moments to pause and talk to him about some random things. And I, at some point, mentioned that I was moving soon. I was actually about to move in with my boyfriend because he had proposed to me. but he mistook what I was saying as I was just looking for a new place to live. He immediately looked me up and down and said, "Do you want to live in my basement?" I kinda paused for a moment and looked at him, and then said, "Live in your basement? Are you subletting your house or something?" I wasn't interested in living there. It was just a weird thing to say. He immediately followed up with, "Oh, no, but I could put a bed down there and then you and I could be together. You wouldn't have to work anymore. You could just stay in my basement, with me." I was honestly taken aback to the point that I think I chuckled at this suggestion, thinking he was making an off-kilter joke or something. But I realized after a moment that he was being serious. I asked him why he would just ask someone to move into his basement like that, especially if he wasn't subletting. He then told me that it would be perfect for me because we could always be close. I never thought I'd have to say it, but I told him I was engaged and that I never saw him in that way. I think he was devastated by my comment because he just kinda looked at the floor and stared, and he didn't seem to want to talk to me after that. In fact, he actually never came back to the restaurant, though he did send love letters to me about 3 months after this. Now, this in of itself is a bit creepy, but it actually does get worse. Around 2 years after all that happened, 2 years after the last time I seen Tommy, and around 7 months after I had quit my job at that pizza place, I was watching the news and saw a story about someone being arrested. And who else's picture shows up on the screen but Tommy? Come to find out, Tommy lived with his mother, and his mother was completely disabled and depended upon him to do everything for her. From what I gathered from the story, Tommy's mother died from neglect. Basically, she starved to death because he wasn't taking care of her like he was supposed to. Apparently, when they found her, she had been deceased for a while, and Tommy was still living in the house, in the basement. The photos they showed of the house were nothing shy of a scene from Hoarders. There were small patches of rooms that were empty, but for the most part, the entire house was disgusting. There was trash everywhere. The walls were yellowed, and it was pretty clear they had animals. As they were showing pictures of the house, I saw pizza boxes from where I worked in the bathrooms. That's how bad it was. He was arrested and charged for his mother's death. I believe negligent homicide is the term they used. And that's my story of the time that I was invited to live in the basement by a guy that I thought was cool, but apparently lived with and was negligently caretaking for his mother. Not that there's anything wrong taking care of your loved ones, but Tommy was pretty obviously not a good caretaker. I feel terrible for his mother, and I hope she's resting in peace, but I really don't feel bad for Tommy, and I'm thankful that I never met him again. A blind man has the ability to see ghosts of those who have recently passed away for a short time. "I just wanted to see her face," he told the judge when she asked him why he murdered his own daughter. And with that, we're near the end of this video. I'd like to thank everyone who let me read their stories. I even had 2 submitted ones for this go-around. All these stories remind you to always watch your back. Even when you think you're safe, you're really not. Doesn't matter if you live in a big city to the middle of nowhere. Creeps are creeps. And every creep, let's not meet. And thank you as the Raven Dreams, as always, for helping me with 2 of these stories. You really saved me, dude. Thank you. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, well, subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. If you'd like to help this channel/podcast, please just share it with anyone you think who might enjoy it. And if you'd like to help in other ways, I do have a Patreon, merch, and PayPal. Links are down below and on my website, as always. And of course, I would love a comment as well about what your favorite story was, or you can just use a Sunday word or a little bit of both. So let's get that for you. On screen right now is everyone who wrote me something last week using the word harmony. Well, 2 weeks ago, because last week was a compilation. As always, guys, thank you so much. I really look forward to comments. They're some of my favorite things. Now, on to this Sunday's word, which should brighten your day, because it's sunrise. Now, it's easy if you're on a platform that has the comments. All you have to do is write me a sentence using this word, and you'll be in next week's photo. If you're on the podcast, though, just go to my Twitter, adding242reads, use this sentence, and I'll put you in next week's photo as well. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. As of recording, we're at 965 subscribers. That is crazy, and I'm just dumbfounded by it. Thank you guys so much. Sleep tight, and don't let 42 bite.